At my father's funeral, the lawyer said, "I'm confused. He already distributed his inheritance to you last year." "What do you mean?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the organ music still echoing through the chapel. The mourners were filing past Dad's casket, but Mr. Hartwell had pulled me aside near the back pew with a manila folder clutched in his weathered hands. His eyebrows knitted together as he flipped through documents, and I watched my sister Rebecca freeze mid-conversation with our aunt when she noticed us talking. Her face went ashen, and she started walking toward us with deliberate steps that made my stomach clench. Mr. Hartwell adjusted his glasses and pointed to a signature on the bottom of a legal document dated March 15, 2024. "This is your signature, correct? Authorizing the liquidation of your father's entire estate valued at $847,000. I stared at the handwriting that looked exactly like mine, down to the way I crossed my T's and looped my G's, but I'd never seen this document in my life. Rebecca reached us just as I was asking to see the paperwork again, her black dress rustling as she positioned herself between me and the lawyer. She placed her hand on my shoulder with that familiar protective gesture she'd used since we were kids, but something felt different this time. Her fingers were trembling, and when I looked at her face, she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mr. Hartwell, maybe we should discuss this later when everyone's had time to process their grief," she suggested, her voice unnaturally high. But he shook his head and continued explaining how the estate had been divided into 3 equal payments of $282,333.33, distributed to my bank account over 6 months while Dad was supposedly still alive. I grabbed my phone and opened my banking app right there in the church, scrolling back through deposits with shaking fingers. There they were, 3 massive deposits I'd somehow never noticed, buried among my regular paycheck transfers and rent payments. The funeral reception became a blur of casseroles and condolences while I sat in Dad's study going through every bank statement from the past year. Rebecca kept bringing me plates of food I couldn't eat, hovering nearby with this nervous energy I'd never seen before. Around 8 p.m., after the last mourners had left, I found Dad's personal safe hidden behind his diploma wall. Rebecca claimed she didn't know the combination, but when I tried Dad's birthday followed by Mom's, it clicked open immediately. Inside were photocopies of medical records showing Dad had been diagnosed with early-stage dementia 8 months ago, correspondence with 3 different estate lawyers, and a handwritten note in Dad's shaky writing that made my blood freeze. The note was addressed to me and dated just 2 weeks before he died. "If you're reading this, Rebecca convinced me you needed money for your house down payment. I signed the papers because she said you were too proud to ask. I hope I did the right thing." My hands shook as I realized my sister had manipulated our dying father into liquidating his entire life's work. Rebecca found me holding the note at 9:47 p.m., and the look on her face told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. She sank into Dad's leather chair and started crying, but these weren't grief tears, they were panic tears. She confessed that her husband Derek had been laid off for 18 months and they were 3 payments behind on their mortgage. She'd forged my signature on the estate documents after convincing Dad I was in financial trouble and too embarrassed to ask for help. The $847,000 had gone directly into their joint account, and they'd already spent $340,000 paying off their house and Derek's gambling debts. I called the police from Dad's landline at 10:15 p.m., while Rebecca begged me to think about her 2 kids and how this would destroy their family. Detective Morrison arrived 30 minutes later and took photographs of all the documents while Rebecca sat silently on the couch. She was arrested for elder abuse, fraud, and forgery, and I pressed charges for every single count. The estate was frozen pending investigation, and 6 months later, Rebecca pled guilty to avoid trial. She got 18 months in prison and full restitution, though recovering the money she'd already spent took another year of legal battles that cost me $47,000 in attorney fees.